I co-founded the Lumineers 20 years ago with my partner, the singer Wes, and about 20 years ago when we started the Lumineers, I could barely play the piano to save my life. I mean, I was a drummer in the band and just kind of learned piano, sort of trial by fire. I was sort of thrown into that deep end and I wanted to learn piano, don't get me wrong, but it was very difficult, to learn. And then fast forward maybe 12, 15 years later after the band had formed, I had released my first solo piano album called Piano Piano One. And it was kind of a conversation I had with my manager years ago where I said, I really want to become a composer. I really want to get into films and cinema. But obviously this gig at this level, it's not just like, you answer a Craigslist ad or you can just call a director and say, hey, can I do your next movie? It doesn't work like that, obviously. And I said to my management team, maybe I'll just put out this solo record, Piano Piano One, as sort of a resume or a calling card. I actually sent it to a bunch of directors, Francis, of course, being one of them. And then one of our managers had a rapport with this guy named Roy Lee, who's one of the producers on this film. The next morning I had breakfast with Roy in LA and we had talked for just a couple of hours and he said, I might have this cool project. It's kind of early days, but I think you could be really great for it. It's a Stephen King adaptation. For me, I was like trying to play it cool, like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. Stephen King, Francis Lawrence. But inside I was sort of freaking out because, I remember seeing I Am Legend years ago in the theaters. It really blew me away and I was like, wow, Francis is like a, profound, prolific director and filmmaker. At some point I got a text message, hey, it's Francis Lawrence. I'd like to talk to you about, maybe scoring my next movie. We talked for, I think, 30 to 45 minutes, that first preliminary call. I felt very like we were on the same page creatively. And I said, I'm hearing some piano, I'm hearing some strings, but maybe not like, some sort of raw, broken sense of humanity. And let's really tell a story. Let's do something different with the score. He loved that idea. And then I had gotten a few versions of different scripts. And we basically started scoring a lot of it just from the script, which was incredible. And then we sent everything to them. And again, had some really great collaborative, positive reinforcement from Francis. He liked a bunch of ideas. He told me he was listening to stuff on set, which I thought was really cool. He's a really great communicator. He understands music. I know he probably just calls himself a director, but I hope he also thinks of himself as an artist and a musician because his notes were very succinct and they made sense. I think that when I read the book and read the script, I was really clinging on to the element of almost like Stand By Me. We need to play off this platonic love, but it was very deep love, especially between McVries and Ray, these two boys that find, in my mind, they almost fall in love with each other by the end of the story. It's a very beautiful, heartfelt relationship that ultimately there can only be one winner. We're in the Stephen King universe, but playing off all these beautiful relationships where they sort of find a reason to keep walking. I wanted the viewers to feel that humanity and that rawness at times. And how do you do that? And I think it was just through trial and error of certain compositions. And then when the cue is right against the picture, it's like more, give me more piano or give me more strings or give me more weird sounds. And this for me was so fun because it was that perfect balance of trying to find sound design, but also in my own way writing pieces of music that felt like songs. And I think for me at times in the movie, I was trying to find ways to never really reinvent the wheel, but to try to give something to Francis in the film that ideally had never been heard before against picture or against with. So I like the idea of like a little bit of sugar with the medicine. If you have this beautiful piano, let's temper it with a little bit of something that it is Stephen King. Let's not let the listener completely relax. But I think this was probably like one of the most fun, if not the most rewarding experiences of my creative life. Honestly, I remember growing up, I was really enthralled with cinema and the music when I saw Shawshank Redemption, saw what Thomas Newman did to that as an audience member and as a musician and as a human, like watching, the perfect piece of music to the perfect piece of film. It's very intense and I think that it's very rewarding. I felt really lucky too, because to have Francis in my corner, you know, the director of the movie, being so open to weird ideas, you know, experimental ideas, being very collaborative.